I think it's the first time we've had such an appearance here at the Federation Conference. This is the CEO address, and we welcome to the stage Mukund Krishna, the Chief Executive Officer of the Police Federation of England and Wales.
Good morning, conference, and to colleagues in Gladdo. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to speak to you at our annual conference as the Police Federation's first ever Chief Executive Officer. Having worked in the private sector and the UK criminal justice system for many years, I joined the Federation in 2021. Over the last couple of years, I've got to know and understand the organization very well. Its people, its processes, its problems. Now, as recently appointed CEO, I hope to bring that knowledge together with professionalism and strong leadership in order to safeguard the Federation and put us on a path to a better future. Firstly, I am sorry that we are not able to gather in person this year. It's one of a few sad consequences, I'm afraid, of the perilous financial position that the Federation finds itself in, about which I will speak more shortly. However, we are pleased that we are still able to hold conference this year as policing is going through more than its fair share of challenges. We come together at a pivotal time for the Federation. I want to use this moment to level with you, our members, and to outline a way forward. Before that, I wanted to acknowledge that our organization has a proud history. Since the formation of the Federation over 100 years ago in 1919, we have established ourselves as the undisputed voice of policing across England and Wales. Our presence is felt in Westminster, where we have used our influence to affect legislative change, as well as safeguard the pay and working conditions for police officers up and down the country. We have also provided funding for many thousands of police officers who have been injured or found themselves the subject of legal claims. Without this support, many police officers would face financial ruin and ill health. This is why the Federation is so important. This is the work we do and will continue to do day in and day out. However, much of the good work we have been doing for our members has been clouded by mistakes of the past. The Employment Tribunal's judgment on the police pension discrimination claim was a hammer blow to the Federation. There is no way of sugarcoating the fact this was an extremely damaging judgment. There are no excuses. This was a monumental failure. And I am deeply sorry to those members who have been impacted by the decision not to challenge the government's change in pension policy. I feel a deep sense of responsibility for putting the situation right. I'm committed to engage, rebuild bridges, learn lessons, and implement change. We have initiated a 7-point plan to address the challenges brought by the decision, which starts with an acknowledgement of our failings and apologies to the claimants. We are initiating reviews to understand what went wrong and what could we do better. In the meantime, it's important to recognize that these claims and others relating to historic data breach issues pose a real threat to the future of the Federation. As a not-for-profit organization which applies member subscriptions to the services we provide, we are not financially designed to withstand these types of group claims. That means the national board will have to make some difficult decisions to safeguard the Federation as a whole. This is to ensure that we are able to carry out the essential services we provide to police officers at both a local and national level. Ultimately, this will mean a leaner, simpler, and more efficient federation, one that will be fit for the future. To do this, there are several important steps we need to take. First, we must get our own house in order. That starts with reminding ourselves of the importance of our membership. Job number one is to make sure that police officers have the best possible terms and conditions as they continue to work relentlessly to provide safer neighborhoods. Many of the initiatives born out of the members' agenda form part of our strategy led by our National Secretary's Office in partnership with the branches. Second, and also a key theme for the conference, is the work we do representing our members to the wider public. You will have seen and heard our local and national boards raising awareness of policing issues with MPs in the press and media alike. This is our public agenda led by our National Chair's Office. And the last piece of the jigsaw is my core area of responsibility, which is the Federation agenda. This is about ensuring the Federation is in the best possible shape to support our reps, members, and staff. You can expect to hear more about our transformational journey, which we have called Project Sunrise, over the coming weeks and months. We will also be reaching out to members over the coming weeks for your input into the review of the Federation, specifically to hear from you about what you value most. Finally, many of you will recall the 2014 Normington Review of the Federation. Unfortunately, whilst a number of recommendations to the Federation's governance were implemented following the review, it is now clear these changes did not go far enough. We missed an opportunity to make more wholesale changes that would have prevented some of the challenges we face today. Almost 10 years on from the Normington Review, we need to go further. Today, I'm announcing that we will be commissioning a new independent review of the Federation. This review will be a root and branch look at the statutory basis of our organization, our purpose, our rules, our policies, our funding, and our governance. We are at a crossroad, and the decisions we make today will undoubtedly have huge implications for the future of our organization. I will meet the current challenges head-on and lead the Federation into a new era of professionalism and transparency. And in doing so, will put the pride back into policing. I'm excited and look forward to working with you to make this happen. Needless to say, officers across the country are under enormous pressure. We need to provide a strong voice and representation from a Federation that commands respect and which leads by example. Now is the time to come together to reinstate pride in policing and, with your help, build a Federation, our Federation, that is fit for the future. Thank you.
Mukund, thank you. We are going to take some questions as well. If you have questions pertaining to what is arguably such an overarching and important aspect of everything this conference is all about, you know what to do. Use the screen, get your question in, and we'll try and get through as many as we possibly can. Welcome, Mukund. Good to see you.
Likewise. Thank you.
You mentioned there, in over 100 years the Federation has been going, but there's never been a CEO before. That will surprise some people, that there was some kind of, whatever it was called, that position simply did not exist. But also you acknowledge the financial issues that are around the Federation at the moment. There might be, not unreasonably, some members listening to this thinking, hang on a second, there are financial constraints, there are pressures, there are issues. Why have we appointed a CEO?
Yeah. Thank you. That's a really good question, Ian, and in fact, a question that's often asked. I guess the starting point is to look at why we've landed in this financial position. And what's very clear following the judgment, the pension discrimination claim judgment, is as an organization, there seems to be a number of gaps that we need to look into. A sign of any growing and progressive organization is one of reflection and learning. The board reflected on the judgment and took a view that it is absolutely pivotal that we have a business experience at the heart of decision making. And therein comes the role of the CEO. So my background is very much business, commercial, having worked in the private sector and across the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
So that's where the role comes in.
Just give, for members thinking, you know, what is your background? Just a little more on that would be useful, perhaps, for some people watching, thinking, you know, you clearly seem like a very capable, nice guy. Where have you come from, and what is it that you did before arriving with the mighty Federation?
Yeah, sure. Listen, I've been a management consultant, a global management consultant for about 20 years, worked across different countries. And what I specialize in is working with boards and organizations to recover and deliver a program of change. That's broadly me, and I've spent the last 12, 15 years working within the UK criminal justice system, and which includes policing as well. So yeah, that's who I am.
So there's a connection in that respect. But even regardless of that, is the position that the CEO role was needed because it required somebody who had a level of independence, who was out of the politics of policing, and could bring perhaps a more objective view. This is all about the future, after all. This is not about the past, which we could talk about for another 100 years, I'm sure, but this is very much about going forwards.
Indeed it is, and it is also about looking at the future with a new lens rather than looking at the future with the lens of the past. Clearly, what I do often tell people is I don't have to be worried about am I going to get re-elected or not. Yeah. I hold a very independent position, and so my loyalty is to PFEW and its membership. And there are some incredibly hardworking reps and staff both in the council and in the board, and who are determined to do the right thing. And what I think as an organization we've been missing is that business context towards making the right decisions within the context of the wider policing agenda.
So in fact, because naturally people will scratch their head and say, well, hang on a sec, you know, if this is a federation that, you know, it's about policing. Most of the senior positions are held by police officers, still warranted police officers that hold those. Steve and Tiff are obvious examples of that. So your contention is that actually that the strength of your position is the fact that you aren't in that place, that you're not part of the police family in the traditional sense, despite the connections of your backstory, as it were.
Indeed, it is. And I think one of the issues I feel policing in England and Wales is facing, and perhaps even wider UK is facing, is there is very little opportunity to bring external expertise into policing. And policing as a sector really requires thought leadership and external views coming in, what we call as the good industry practice. Yeah. So what we are trying to do in the Fed, and what the board and the council in the Fed have recognized, is the need for that external industry practice and that business perspectives being brought into policing to shake things up a bit and start challenging the status quo. Yeah.
And if you want to put pride back into policing, which I know you do, then it has to start somewhere, and you sense that this is the beginning of a longer journey, which might sometimes be difficult, but it is about looking forward, and you're confident about that journey.
Indeed, indeed. I've met quite a few members, and I've met quite a few reps And I've also met a number of people in member of public as well. One of the things that draws my attention to, which I do feel sad about sometimes, is officers are not willing to at times disclose that they are officers in public. And I recall this incident in a tube where I was asking them what they did, and they literally had to come close to my ear and whisper to say I'm a police officer.
Yeah. And that never used to be the case, right? It was the very opposite. When I was growing up, I mentioned this yesterday, when I was growing up, if you met a copper off duty, that was like meeting a rock star, for goodness sake. You know,
Indeed.
That was a very important job and one that everybody respected, and yet police themselves are keeping it quiet almost.
Indeed. I remember.
They shouldn't be that way. Right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. I remember taking pictures with officers when I came into the UK back in 2017, 2007, sorry. So there's a lot that's changed, and undoubtedly they are under a lot of scrutiny, and there are a small section of bad apples that undermine and shadow the vast majority of incredibly brave and committed police officers.
Sure.
So what I'm trying to do here is the Federation has a role to play in all this. We represent over 140,000 rank and file police officers. We are the undisputed voice of policing. So if we don't provide the infrastructure and the support to change and influence policing, who is going to? So, and that is what reinstating pride in policing is about. It is we reorganize ourselves in a manner that we are able to provide better and consistent service to our members. And from there comes the influencing into the policing agenda. And therefore, we start to rebuild pride in policing.
There's an obvious focus on the financial position of the Federation. That is very much key to what you'll be looking at. It would raise the question why you're not proposing raising subs at this conference. Some people might have expected you to have said that in your speech there, but you didn't. Is there a reason for that?
Absolutely. A couple of very important reasons, and it's a great question, by the way. We'll hear more from our treasurers later today. I think in very simple terms, what I'd say is subs are always under review. Okay, any progressive, any good membership organization will always review subs because the cost of living is going up, the expenditure is going up, and therefore you want to look at how income needs to meet those requirements. However, this year, the board and the council, having had a number of conversations, very healthy, constructive conversations, have come to the view that the emphasis very much needs to be about how we as an organization can become more efficient and become more effective. And it's probably once in a few decades is when we get a pay award such as a 7%. At least that's what history tells us.
Yeah.
So in recognition of all of this, we've taken a view that we don't want to increase subs this year. We will, of course, we will constantly review it. But as far as this year is concerned, we are certainly not going to do that.
So does that mean you're looking at other ways to be more efficient?
Undoubtedly. Again, the treasurers will cover this later today. As an organization, we generate about £40 million in our subscriptions income. That is our primary source of income. And out of that 40 million that we generate, we spend almost all of it in running the day-to-day organization. And clearly, there are essential services we need to provide and we will continue to provide. But equally, when you have your expenditure as much as your income, you know there is something going wrong.
Yeah.
So we've got to look at how we can reorganize ourselves so that we're able to provide a better and a consistent service to the membership.
Let's talk a little about the Pension Discrimination Employment Tribunal. That judgment was published earlier this year.
Yeah.
The Federation has yet to pay out to members affected. Why would that be?
And I hear a lot about this, and we've discussed this within the board numerous times. At the outset, we have decided not to appeal the judgment. And we are very keen to rebuild bridges and rebuild the relationship. On the face of it, while it seems a very simple equation of you've decided not to appeal and therefore you pay out. When you get into the detail, it is far too complex. So what I will say is that we are in discussions with the panel firm representing the discrimination claimants. In fact, as recently as last week, we are working towards what that payout should be and how that is likely to take place. And so, and I hope people will understand there is only so far I can go into an ongoing piece of a legal issue. So, but what I will commit to do is make updates or provide updates at relevant junctures as we progress. But there is a limit to how far I can go into this, if that
Understood.
makes sense. Yeah.
In your speech that you gave there, you talked about commissioning an independent review of the organisation. That often sends shivers up people's spines when they hear the word a review. We hear politicians say that there's going to be a review. You know, well, how long? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? What does a review look like? What are you trying to achieve? We know some of it. You've already told us. And how long would it take?
So you are right. I think there are far too many reviews, especially in policing. I think at any point in time we are looking at about 25, 30 odd global reviews in policing, just within England and Wales. So this review that we are talking about here, and I think it's important to recognize the Normington review in 2014 brought us a long way forward to where we were. And it kind of redefined our organization structures and how we represent and behave ourselves as an organization. But clearly, that was almost about 10 years ago. The policing landscape has changed in 10 years. Our service profile of the membership has changed in 10 years. And therefore, it's important that we reorganize to reflect that change in service profile and the demands of the membership. We've just had the tribunal judgment on pensions claim. That's exposed us in a number of areas, which clearly has called out areas that we need to look at. So what this review is going to do is reflect back on where we have gone wrong, and also to make sure that we are fit for the future. How do we need to reorganize ourselves looking forward? Because this is all about how do we move forward and how do we make sure that there is a federation that truly represents the membership for the next 100 years at least to come.
So it's not just, I mean, obviously finance is the backdrop to all of this, presumably. It isn't just about cutting back on the free sandwiches at a meeting. It is about overarching structures of the federation, the entire way, top to bottom, the way it's run, the way it's put together. Would that be fair? Absolutely.
I think it's a very good way to express the scope in pretty plain terms. The review will focus on how decisions are made within the organization, who's making those decisions, what information should be made available. It's what good organizations out there do, professionalize the way you work. And this is all about openness, transparency in decision making, making sure governance stands scrutiny at all levels, and making sure we are being who we say we are, and who we need to be. That's what this review is going to focus about. Yes, it's going to affect top-down, bottom-up, whichever way we look at it, but that's what change and that's what transformation journey is about. This is not about tinkering around the edges and kicking a tire here and there. As I say, the landscape in policing has changed significantly, and what we as a federation have an obligation to do is to reflect and realign ourselves to that change in landscape.
So if you want to be fit for the future, standing still is not an option.
It is not. I mean, as someone said, change is the only constant.
Yeah.
So what we need to be doing is making sure that we are constantly reflecting the changing needs of the membership.
Paul Della says, not unreasonably, if we are so short of money, how can we afford another independent review? Because they're not cheap.
Indeed, indeed, they're not cheap. And good question, Paul. I would start with, it is really paramount as an organization we start to try and strike a balance between the cost of everything and value of nothing. change comes at a price. It's an investment we need to make. Like I said, we are earning 40 million and we are spending almost all of that. And there is really no opportunity for us to deal with a rainy day. The government want to go back to misconduct cases. Looking back the last 20 years, vetting's an issue. Officers need more support, and the money has to come from somewhere. And we have decided not to increase subs this year.
Yeah.
So we need to invest in areas that will help us reorganize our business so that we are able to provide a better and consistent service.
Are
So
there
I
other
would see this as
options
an
to
investment.
raise money other than subs?
As an organization, we always explore options, but we are a statutory body, and therefore we are limited certainly by avenues which we can explore to raise subs.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be possible for me to set up, for example, a consulting arm and start generating revenue out of that, because we are a statutory body and we have certain restrictions.
Yeah.
So we've got to find the money, coming back to Paul's questions, we've got to find the money somewhere from within our existing budgets and treat that as an investment for the right reasons.
Question from Simon Payne, who says, CEO, where do you see us in 5 years' time?
Good question again. We as a board and the council have agreed our strategy and vision for 2025. That's what we are working to at the minute. And the transformation program that I have announced today, the independent review, should see us over the next 12, 18 months, give or take. I would, in 5 years' time, my vision for the organization is to see us as one organization, as one business body, working together with a united front, representing the length and breadth of England and Wales. I would like us to have a healthier set of reserves so that we can provide better services to the membership. And I would like us to be more open, honest, and transparent, which is what the membership are calling for.
Just reiterate, apologies if I missed that point about how long the review will take.
Yeah. We expect to commission the review in a few months.
Okay.
And I would like to say the review should be commissioned this side of Christmas, because we need to really get on with the program of change. And I would think the review would go anywhere between 6 to 12 months, depending on what comes out of the review. The more important bit for me is the independence of the review. The review needs to be undertaken by an independent individual or a panel who we will appoint through a process, and it is that independence that will drive the duration of the review and the recommendations.
What does an independent panel look like? I mean, I'm not suggesting you can name names, but I mean, are you talking about people with a policing background? Naturally, lawyers would be in there somewhere. Economist elements obviously in there somewhere. Is it 10 people? Is it 2 people? What would that look like?
Yeah, and I think it's a good question, Ian. We need something that is, the panel needs to be fit for purpose to give us a set of recommendations following a proper review. Discussions are currently in flight, and we would be arriving at some of those decisions in the next month or two. I would see it's a small group of people. Certainly will have a legal representation in that panel, someone with a business and a commercial experience and someone with deep financial experience. But we will have to go through the due diligence of identifying who those people are.
You talked about the Federation being leaner and simpler. On the face of it, that sounds maybe quite attractive. Who doesn't like a far more simpler process and structure? But can you reassure members that whatever that does mean, it isn't going to result in providing less support? Because the backbone of all of this, of course, is support for serving officers.
Indeed. I certainly would like to reassure and reconfirm. Leaner and simpler does not mean fewer services or compromised services. It's about providing better services and a more consistent set of services, whether you are in England or Wales or whether you're in the north or in the south. Absolutely, and that's a key part of the review, is to ensure that we are providing that service delivery that's more consistent.
So in terms of day-to-day, a member, would a member notice the difference? Would it be obvious? Would, you know, every service that a member can currently access, you want to retain that position, but still make things leaner and
I mean, I'd like to think the member will notice a difference, but it's a positive difference.
Okay.
And at the minute, what I hear from the membership, what I hear from the representatives that I interact with is service delivery sometimes is patchy, depending on who your rep is, and depending on which part of the country you are in.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we are looking to invest in within the Federation is to create a standardized accreditation program for all our reps, so they all undergo the same program of development so that the service delivery is consistent to the membership. And that is an investment that we are beginning to make.
At the moment, and this is reflected by a question from Robert Watson, who says members widely have trust in local boards and local reps. Often, you know, they will know these people personally, and that's quite crucial, certainly to challenging or sometimes delicate, difficult issues that have arisen. But Robert says, but not trust in the Police Federation Central. There is a kind of divide there. What are you actually going to do to rebuild that trust and confidence? Because for many members, there is a duality here. There is their local boards, but this big monolith in Leatherhead is something else to many members.
And indeed, there is certainly that perception, and there is that feeling amongst a section of the membership, no doubt, and I've experienced that and witnessed that myself. When I say we are going to review the structural position of the organization, and when Simon Payne asked the question around the vision for 5 years, and when I say I want us to be a united body, that's what I mean, which is how do we really not see ourselves as 44 different bodies, 43 locally and 1 nationally? How do we work as one body? Mm-hmm. That's the kind of stuff that we need to be doing between now and the next few years to get to that position. Now, clearly, there is an internal conflict. I would be lying and I would be fudging if I don't acknowledge that. There certainly is that internal issue we need to overcome. But what I will say is that that internal conflict and issue is currently being recognized and acknowledged within the organization more than ever before. And that, to me, is the first step in that change process.
So part of this restructuring, if that is the right word, after this review, would be to address that issues such as that. So there isn't a sense of there's 2 or 3 different elements running things. There is one body, there will be branches, but there's a centralized system and everybody's happy with both. Indeed.
We want to try and get to a situation where we are not a franchisee model anymore. We are a head office with 43 branches, and in its true spirit. Of course, there will be differences in how branches operate locally, and we'll have to cater to that. But from a policy perspective and from a decision-making perspective, we need to get to a position where we are one body. And that is the work we're going to embark on.
James Jackson asked this question: why is the CEO not an elected position, and who holds the responsibility for the strategic direction of the Federation?
Yeah, good question again. Our rules and our legislation at the minute call for police officers who have an interest in representing colleagues to put a foot in the Federation camp and go through that election process to go in. So our rules and our regs at the minute don't cater to the CEO being elected. But the more fundamental bit, and this is a part of the change statement that the board has made, is you want a CEO, you need a CEO who's got that business experience and who does not have to worry about being elected in the future. Mm-hmm. You need that independence in the board that can come in straight with the loyalty to PFEW and actually work to that loyalty and PFEW.
So that is, I mean, we went over this a little at the beginning, but the fact that it's not an elected position should be the strength of the position.
Indeed, it is an absolute strength of that position. It's also the strength of the organization to say that they have appointed someone in the form of an independent body, independent person to lead. But the most important bit, which I'm very keen for the membership to understand and take away from this, is whilst the CEO is responsible for running the day-to-day organization and is responsible for leading on the strategy side of things for the federation agenda, they are still held accountable by the board, who are elected officers. So the accountability still sits with the board.
And I was going to say, who holds you to account in that respect?
It's the national board.
So the national
elected.
board.
Indeed,
okay.
indeed.
So that structure is still there.
That structure is there, and that level of governance is in place where the board holds the CEO accountable and the council holds the board accountable.
Right.
And so we have that built into the process.
Question from Aidan Kelly. The Federation has lost respect over the pensions failures. Are the PFEW looking to agree settlement fees quickly to try and regain some faith from our members? And we alluded to that at the beginning with a question about, why has nothing happened so far? Yeah. Even allowing for some of the legal minefields around this. I mean, certainly then there is a time imperative attached to this by definition.
Indeed there is, and we are very keen to move on to, we are very keen to agree what that settlement is, if we are able to agree that, and move on. I think there is a collective consensus within the Federation that it is important that we address the issues related to pensions, which will then mark the start of a new era. So I promise to the membership that we are very keen to move forward and rebuild the bridges with that section of our membership and move forward. Like I say, the devil's in the detail. It's incredibly complex, and there's only so far I can go into in this Q&A.
In terms of the overarching changes, or structural changes, financial changes, whatever it happens to be, you said a couple of months' time, hopefully there's some sort of completion of a review, although things are ongoing. Will there be a point soon where members will look and go, right, I can see what Mukund has done here. This makes perfect sense. I know that your passion is about the future. I know you want to put pride into policing. I also happen to know, because I know you a bit, you're a nice bloke as well. So your passion is there. But naturally, when somebody comes in new to a position, to an organisation that's been going for 100 years, people, for good or bad, have got used to how it's run. Change is always difficult for some people. So not only have you got to carry out various structural financial changes, you've got to bring people with you as well.
Indeed, yeah. Indeed. Listen, my track record will speak for itself. You don't become a global management consultant working across 5 countries doing nothing. Yeah. It's a complex piece of work. We are talking about an organization that's rich in its history, rich in legacy, that's over 100 years old, and change takes time. We will make the changes to be more fit for the future. There is a lot of consensus and a lot of will within the board and the council to make those changes, and I would say actions speak louder than words. So I'd like to think that in a few months' time, the changes that we are putting in place will start to show externally to the membership. I'm already in discussions with the Home Office, the NPCC, the National Secretary's Office, the National Chair's Office, and we work very closely as a triumvirate, and we are already making some incredible inroads.
So you're finding more agreement than disagreement?
Massively, massively. I think I would say it is difficult sometimes for people to believe that we are changing. I would say sometimes it's difficult for people to believe the change itself, but I can see, as someone who's being independent in all of this, I can see that changes are being made. And they will start to show in a few months. Even simple things like, just very quick point, even simple things like the secretaries and the chairs commissioning an independent assessment of police pay using a leading think tank has never been done before. That is a great example of where changes are beginning to take place. And by engaging that leading think tank, that started to rattle the cage with the government and the other stakeholders. We've never gone as an organization with a more or less joined up approach with the employers on pay. That's never happened before. So hopefully when you start looking at examples like that, the membership are able to see the progress that we are making.
And many members might listen to this and say, well, I'm sure you've got every good intention, but and understand the spirit of having to have a kind of a much more business-like approach to an organisation that has tens of millions of pounds coming in. That naturally needs to be treated with care. But the Federation is not a company in the convention. It's not a tech company. It's not. It's not a retail organisation. It is a very different animal, and needs to be treated accordingly. And that wouldn't be certainly an unreasonable point to raise.
Absolutely not. And a lot of people say this. We are a staff association. We are a membership body, and we are different to the private sector. We are different to how traditional organizations are run. And what I would encourage them to think about and reflect on is, in its core sense, we should not be any different to any professional organization out there. And so at that level, we are precisely the same as any other professional organization. I would then draw a slight distinction in the way I see this, is yes, we are a membership body, but we still need to run the organization as we would run any professional business. It's the service we offer to the membership is one of staff association. It's the service we offer to the membership is one of representation. But how we work as a body, how we function as an organization, and the service we offer are intimately linked, but they're two different things. And that shift in the way we look at who we are as a federation is an important shift, which is what I'm hoping to work with the membership on in the coming months.
So the fundamental principles of what the Police Federation is, what it does day to day for serving women and men around the country, that won't be lost in this.
Absolutely not. The true spirit and the intention behind it is very much still the core of what we do and what we believe in. But how we reorganize ourselves is where the difference is.
A couple more quick questions just to finish on. Joseph Farrell says, are there any other areas of the Federation that you were looking at in order to save money or raise funds?
Really good question. I would flip that around and actually say there is not a single part of the Federation we are not looking at. Everything is on the table. And when we're talking about an independent review, it is an independent review to look at all aspects of the Federation.
Another one here, should the National Board be more accountable to the National Council?
Indeed, the Council already holds the Board accountable. We are in a period of crisis, and I think it's important to recognize that. And we have a set of rules. We are a statutory body. We have a set of rules that clearly define the role of the Board and the Council. Can the Council, or should the Council hold the Board more accountable? And I think it works both ways. I think this is not who reports into whom. This is about how do we collectively take that responsibility. And I'm not trying to fudge it, but that's my observation as a professional coming in. It is not who's holding a stronger position than who. It is the left hand and the right hand working together to deliver the right outcomes for the membership.
Talking to you and a meeting with you, I know that you're passionate about the future. I'm sure lots of people will look at this and say, this is an organisation that needs to look forwards and not backwards. Naturally, you learn from history, but it's all about the future. What is your final message then to members and to staff? And you are now responsible for many thousands of people out there. Just give a final message to all of those people watching this now.
So I'll start with staff only because I haven't really spoken about staff so far. It goes without saying, staff are the backbone of the very service we deliver to the membership. And we would not be able to do what we're doing without them. And so they are an integral part of that transformation journey and will have every opportunity to feed in. And I mean staff at Leatherhead and in the branches alike. I don't draw a distinction between, and so staff are very pivotal to that. My message to the membership is one of, there is a lot of momentum and a commitment within the organization, especially at the back of the tribunal judgment, with the willingness and the keenness to change and make us fit for the future. I am witnessing that commitment, and I am experiencing that commitment, and I am part of that commitment, and I will lead the Federation through this program of change and through the reform, working with the board and the council. What I would like to say to the membership is keep the faith. Thank you.
And on that point, Mukund, thank you. Good to see you.